Hi everyone. The idea: to build a fully functional and nevertheless breathtaking custom bike. To accomplish this, we took the latest Harley-Davidson technology, and combined this with an almost standard, and regular frame/suspension geometry, a sprung front and rear end, an acceptable ground clearance, and a 260 centerline tire. 132 mm trail. 1780 mm wheelbase. Plus 125 mm length. Plus 50 mm height, compared with HD Softail 36 degrees steering head. We always wanted to build a trapeze fork, but never liked their forward design, so we constructed the triple tree as compact as possible. In the lowest position, the lever construction is clearly visible, similar like a telescopic front fork. The fork legs run closely to the steering head, thus forming a unity with the bike combined with the narrow handlebars, and the flowing form of the frame. This gives the bike an elegant and sporty line. By means of the air suspension, the bike can be lowered or raised by 80 mm. We hid the EFI pump in the inner side panel of the left tank. This is necessary because of the form of the tank. The bottom part is clearly visible from below. We're particularly proud of the wheel design, as we think it matches the bike perfectly. To allow the wheel design to continue down to the hub, we walked away from a regular disc flange, and moved the flange outwards. Two 340 mm floating discs add the stopping power for the 26 front wheel, with minimal effort. At the rear, a floating 440 mm perimeter brake disc, combined with a 6-piston caliper does its job extremely well. To emphasize the design of the separate components, all the anodized parts, like the wheels, chin fairing, fuel cap, triple trees, seat, turn signals etc. were remachined after the anodizing process. This was a hugely exciting process, as the color was made to order. 800 liters were mixed in a special vat. This is usable for only 4 days, so nothing was allowed to go wrong with the machining. If something would have gone wrong, we would have been in big trouble. On this occasion we would to give a huge thank you to our anodizer. All the other parts were nickel-plated. This supplements the anodizing colors beautifully. To round it all off, we produced new engine and gearbox covers in a rib design. Matching toppers on the footrests and handlebar grips are the finishing touch. This bike is a fairly well-defined customer order. These were the specifications. Super sporty appearance, neat pressure in the engine, big wheels and powerful brakes. Design and paint based on the Lamborghini Aventador. And most important, easy to use and easy to drive. For the spine we chose our TBR framework. 132 mm caster, 1780 mm wheelbase, plus 125 mm length, versus HD Softail, and 36 degrees steering angle. With such data, a functional and well-mobile custom bike is created. In addition, a 120R Screamin' Eagle engine for the necessary bumps combined with current HD technology and electronics for easy handling. Air suspension front and rear for a decent ground clearance and a 260R tire running in the middle. Two big 340 mm floating discs with radial calipers ensure a good deceleration even with a 23 inches front wheel. At the rear, a floating 440 mm perimeter brake disc with 6-co brake caliper ensures excellent braking performance. The bike was drawn in advance in 3D in order to visualize the proportions of the customer. Detailed solutions can thus be perfectly coordinated with the customer in advance. It is unbelievable how realistic the bike looks in the calculator and how close it is to the original. After the bike was drawn, we took the measurements for the sheet metal parts and then produced the sheet metal dress. In the meantime, the newly designed milled parts were programmed and then wheels, pulley, stubs, fork bridges, dip tubes, engine covers, handles, pegs, etc. manufactured. We have built countless bikes, but this is by far the most expensive and uncompromising Thunderbike. This bike has moved so much here. This bike is incredible. I understand that now, where a little piece has returned. Already when the first parts came back from the nickel plating, I became aware of what we had built there. It is the sum of things. Every little detail is an absolute highlight in itself. I planned many bikes, made lists, made sketches and coordinated parts. I tried to count by. It's incredible. Nothing that can be found on this bike has ever existed. Frame, engine, swing arm, fork, ignition, brake, bump, tank, fairing, oil cooler, Steering damper and handlebars are new and different not only in their shape but above all in their function. It is the art of technology, the pioneering spirit, not only to redesign something, but also to recreate functional processes at the same time. The construction period of the Open Mind was 3 months, the total development time about half a year. The entire development and production of all components as well as all bodywork was carried out exclusively by the team around Thunderbike. The operating elements such as gas, clutch, brake, gearshift, air suspension, etc. were combined with each other and not visibly integrated in fork and frame. The result was a super clean overall impression, which distracts neither by screws, cables or lines from the design and deliberately creates the impression that it is an inedible study. The spectacular Showbike is driven and braked by an equally invisible friction roller drive. Air suspension at the front and rear lets the bike lift for driving. The paint system is 28 layers thick and interspersed with different sized metal pigments. All stripes are hand-lined, pinstriping. This bike is 100% high school, explains Andreas Bergerforth, while at the moment the rest of the world likes to talk about old school. Be that as it may, the bike is definitely in line with the trend. Because the aptly named Open Mind iron does not lack a good portion of vintage flair. This bike was completely designed on the drawing board. The important thing was not to follow any trend, but to give form and execution its own signature. There was no framework. Toof? Fuck it all. Are there any customers for this? No matter. Too costly, too expensive? So what? Only the goal was clear, absolutely awesome. From the first sketch to the start of construction about 6 months passed. The construction time even to the ready-to-drive blank was 4 months. Another month was needed for paint, chrome and final assembly. The controls such as throttle, clutch, brake, gearshift and air suspension were not visibly integrated into fork and frame. The result was a super clean overall impression, which is not distracted by screws, cables or lines from the design. Consciously creates the impression that it is an inedible study. Design highlight and technology center is certainly the fork. Frame and fork bridges merge together in a previously unknown way. At the same time, the entire operating technique is hidden in the upper triple clamp. The Spectacula is driven and braked by an equally invisible friction roller drive with intermediate gear. The front brake pipe was integrated into the standpipe. The technology was developed by Biggs, NL. Air suspension at the front and rear lets the bike lift for driving. Considering that everything was made in-house, one can imagine that it was a tremendous show of strength for us. It was difficult that we also built our new Harley-Davidson store at the same time. Our goal was to drive the bike into the shop on the opening day. The biggest challenge for this project was its own claim, absolute high-end. The paint system is from Cruise Design. The paint is 28 layers thick and interspersed with different sized metal pigments. All stripes are hand-lined. Many customers come from far away to see this bike. To experience something so positive in this day and age is something very special and motivates the whole team to continue on our way. Thanks for watching.